Hello, book lovers. I'm Jonathan Safran Foer, and I'd like to read a passage from my New York Times bestseller, Everything is Illuminated. No, I'm of course the other John Safran, although you'd be interested to know that really people mix me up with the best-selling vegetarian activist, and each week confused Americans email me to congratulate me on my campaign to stop battery-hemmed farming, apparently unaware that over my career I've sacrificed no less than 3 chickens in voodoo ceremonies. And I can only assume Jonathan Safran Foer gets emails each week from furious Eurasians. Anyway, I've decided to talk about my father, Alex Safran, and in recognition of the fact that I was often as confused after my dad passed on his wisdom as I was before, I've entitled this Teachings from My Father, Nothing is Illuminated. I was about 10. I was jogging with my father through the streets of North Balwyn. We stopped to catch our breath. By the side of the road was a Mercedes-Benz. My dad said, when I was young, most cars had hood ornaments. There were these big metal eagles, there were these Art Deco spikes, but it was dangerous. If you were hit by a car, you were impaled by an eagle beak. So the government told the car makers, if you're going to have a hood ornament, it has to be spring-loaded. I was completely ignorant about all matters relating to hood ornaments. I was still 6 years away from getting caught up in the Beastie Boys' frenzy of '87 and crowbarring a badge off a Volkswagen to wear around my neck. So I asked my dad, what's spring-loaded mean? He says, that means it will bend easily, but it'll spring back. Then he looked over to the Mercedes and said, go on, try it out. I looked up and down the empty street. Surely this was the riskiest thing anyone had done in North Balwyn in the last 20 years. We approached the Mercedes. We looked down at the metal star. Go on, my dad coaxed me. I gripped my hand on the star and pulled it towards me. My dad was right, it did bend easily. I released it to spring back. It didn't spring back. It just sat there, a sad, bent star. My dad looked a bit concerned. He stuck a finger out to gently poke it back, but it made that creaky sound metal makes to say, you get 1 bend of me, 2 bends, and I'm snapping. My dad and I decided we'd rested long enough and jogged off down the street. The hood ornament incident was not uncommon. My father was always encouraging me to poke at things to see what happens. Not long after the Mercedes incident, we were standing around a buffet at a bar mitzvah party. He elbowed me. See that man over there? He pointed to a thin stranger with a moustache scooping up some egg salad. Yeah? See his tie? Yeah? That symbol on it is the Freemason symbol. Who are the Freemasons? They're a secret society. They don't like to be asked about it. Go over and ask him about it. So I went over and looked up at the thin man with the moustache. Are you a Freemason? He looked surprised. His eyes darted around and he quickly scuttled off with a plate of egg salad. From that day on, I was hooked on secret societies. Then when I was 12, I told my dad that I was off to see Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom at the Greater Union Cinema in Russell Street. Greater Union? Yeah. My dad's eyebrows went up. 2 doors down, there's a doorway marked Burke House. You go up the staircase and there's a bookshop run by white supremacists. White supremacists? Yeah, you know, skinheads and neo-Nazis. You should go up there. I did go up to the Burke House staircase. In a small, stale-smelling room, an old man sat behind a desk. Behind him, a bookshelf stocked with racist books and pamphlets. I flicked through a booklet about how you have to watch out for the Jews because they are really sneaky, which, based on my dad, seemed a fair enough appraisal by the Nazis. In this bookshop, my obsession with secret societies was supplemented by a fixation with fringe political groups. But my dad didn't just introduce me to new worlds hidden in the nooks and crannies. He also taught me everything was brain-hurtingly complicated. One day I returned from Sunday school, Jewish Sunday school, where for the first time we learnt about Hitler and his Jew-killing ways. And this is what my dad told me about his German Jewish grandfather, or his German Jewish father. You know my father, your grandfather, he had a rare brain condition. And in Germany at the time, Hitler was obsessed with being on the cutting edge of medical technology. So your grandfather got a free, life-saving operation that wasn't available anywhere else in the world. If it wasn't for Hitler, you would never have been born. Thanks for screwing with my head, Dad. My dad was an accountant, and despite the reputation of that profession, my dad always taught me you have to fight conformity. He told me that one day he was sitting in his office at Perpetual Trustees, where he'd worked for 20 years, and he thought to himself, why does my desk have to be straight? Why does it have to be parallel to the walls? So he got up and pushed his desk so it was at a funky angle. He arrived at work the next day and it had been moved back. His boss poked his head into my dad's office and said, like one of the Cray brothers, yesterday someone moved your desk on an angle. Let's hope that doesn't happen again. My dad also taught me you have to cheat the system. He was 15 and his mum had died. It was the morning of the funeral and he stood at his bedroom closet. He put on his best suit, his best shoes, his best shirt and his best tie and headed to the funeral. The rabbi stood above the coffin and said the prayers. Then the rabbi pulled out a pair of scissors. What's this, my dad thought. The rabbi walked over to my dad, held up the scissors and cut and tore his tie. My dad was to learn it was a Jewish ritual to show you were torn over the loss of someone close. Nevertheless, my dad was pretty annoyed his best tie was ruined. Several years later, my dad's dad died, and on the morning of the funeral, my dad stood by his bedroom closet. He remembered the whole snip-snip incident. So my dad put on his best suit, his best shoes, his best shirt, but instead of his best tie, he pulled out an old, ugly one with a stain. My dad was pretty impressed with himself that he'd worked out a way to cheat the system. He headed to the funeral. The rabbi stood above the coffin, he said his prayers, then pulled out the scissors. My dad straightened his ugly stained tie. Come and get it, Rabbi, he thought. The rabbi walked over, ignored the tie, and cut and ripped his best shirt. Now that you know about Alex Safran, maybe you can understand why I am the way I am, visiting Ku Klux Klan bunkers and getting exercised. So next time you see me up on a crucifix, in blackface, don't blame me, blame Papa. Thank you.